My, what's going on with our young men? They're dropping out of school, they're struggling to find work, they're unable to secure partners and community. For the last few years, reports have been circulating about a so-called male loneliness epidemic. If you've been online for more than 5 minutes, you'll know what that means. According to one camp, it's obviously a gateway drug to extremism, and we mustn't discuss it, or lonely men will become dangerous. According to the other, it's proof that men are the real victims of modern culture, and evidence that society has turned against them entirely. So the answer is clear. We must urgently make this a top cultural priority while also ignoring it completely. Makes sense? So what is this loneliness really pointing to? You're watching Archetypal Wisdom. Join me in exploring the symbolic truths and mysteries of humankind. Remember to like and subscribe. Now, back to the video. There have been many declining sociocultural stats among the male demographic over the last couple of decades. More and more men are dropping out of school. Currently 40% of men are graduating from college compared to 60% of women. This of course has a ripple effect on society, and men's engagement in the labour market has been rapidly declining for the last few decades. Unsurprisingly, this also impacts the dating experience, as a recent survey showed that 21% of women reported that they would rule out dating someone who is less educated than they are, compared with only 8% of men. All of this seems to be compounding for young men, creating more isolation and detachment from culture and society, which seems to be at the heart of the so-called male loneliness epidemic. And the consequences aren't only social. Suicide remains one of the leading causes of death for young men. In the US, men die by suicide at a rate of about 22 to 23 per 100,000, which is roughly 4 times the female rate, at 5 to 6 per 100,000. And rates have continued to rise over the past decade. Numbers like these aren't just statistics. They point to something deeper, a quiet despair that can no longer find direction or purpose. Oh sure, let's discuss male suffering. I'm sure that will be well received. Well, yes, exactly. It's not a topic without intense cultural charge. For example, certain articles push back emphatically on the idea of the male loneliness epidemic, stating that actually it's a genderless loneliness epidemic. They claim that by focusing on it being a male issue, you create a breeding ground for misogyny to spread, as men believe they are uniquely harmed in some way, and then become resentful, turning to misogynistic leaders. Ah, I see. So the solution to the problem of young lonely men turning to counterculture groups to find belonging is to tell them to shut up because everyone's lonely. Seems like a solid plan. Well, yes, perhaps there's some nuance missing here in the critiques. After all, there are surveys reporting that 38% of men said they would be extremely or very likely to turn to a friend for emotional support, whereas 54% of women said the same. This highlights the very long-standing phenomenon of men finding it difficult to reach out for support and articulate what they are struggling with emotionally. While yes, there is clearly a rise in loneliness across all genders and culture at large, is it possible that each one carries its own unique charge and is important to address? Isn't it also possible that the term loneliness is conflating a mixture of more complex emotions underneath that perhaps the collective of men haven't been able to articulate exactly, given their track record of not discussing their feelings? I see. So we shouldn't be concerned with the rising countercultures pulling in disenfranchised young men breeding misogynistic philosophies. That's just a little blip. Nothing to see here. Well, of course, there is a real issue of young men being more prone and susceptible to counterculture groups, which can radicalize them in misogynistic views. Yet, the critique here of loneliness not being unique to men, and that taking this claim of male loneliness seriously gives rise to misogyny, seems to quite spectacularly miss the point. In essence, it fails to remain curious about the emotional undercurrents that are bubbling away. And instead of them being felt and integrated in a healthier manner, they fester and metastasize into the very counterculture groups in question. A survey cited by Movember Foundation found 60% of men said they don't share how they are feeling with anyone. The irony here is that toxic masculinity is blamed as being a direct result of men overcompensating for their insecurities and emotional pain, and if only they could be more open and just say how they feel. Yet in a moment of attempting to address this, we say, pipe down, this isn't about you. Our thinking is, don't let them think their suffering is unique or important, or it will go to their head and they'll become dangerous misogynists. It seems the opposite is true. In shutting them down so immediately, they desperately look elsewhere for belonging, for their pain to be understood, which leads them straight into the hands of counterculture groups who do this in abundance. So we need to ask ourselves, what are these young men actually feeling that would make them want to leave educational institutions and withdraw from this rite of passage into society? Well, perhaps this is in part a shift in the cultural narrative to pay closer attention to the harms of the past in order to better recognize how they still harm society today. This recognition of past harms and their ripple effects is a very important perspective. It allows us to expand our understanding of our shared experience and improve upon societal failings. It creates space and emotional nuance in understanding our shared history and its intricacies. However, what has come along with this expanding perspective is a focus on how the collective of men across history has caused great harm, particularly against women. With this being such a heavy focus of our time, it seems many young men start to feel alienated, inherently bad, and unwanted. This then leads to isolation for a longing for belonging, which they start to find online amongst other dejected and alienated young men. So what's the solution then? We just pretend the past didn't happen so that the boys feel better about themselves? Well, of course not. We need to face our history in all its complexity and darkness. But the reality is young people need direction, mentoring, and guidance. Guilt is a powerful emotion, and with action it can be transformative. Harm was caused, and here's how we improve upon it. Here's the mission. But without clear direction, that ubiquitous sentiment of guilt becomes identity. There's no direction, no mission to create something good, to produce a better tomorrow. All that's left is shame. I am wrong. I am bad. Psychologically, this will inevitably lead to withdrawal, anger, and resentment. Universities are initiatory institutions. They serve as a threshold crossing for the young to enter into the society and contribute. Yet what's happening is a steadily increasing number of boys are not being initiated, instead remaining lost, confused, and bitter. If this situation continues, with more and more young men feeling alienated, unheard, unneeded, and generally disliked, it will only continue to evolve into darker ideologies. Traditionally, men developed community through contribution. They were driven to create and produce, which connected them to others and gave them great meaning. It seems perhaps at the core of this sentiment of loneliness is actually a loss of meaning and direction. Well, sure, but isn't everyone feeling this loss to some extent? Absolutely. The unaddressed grief of modern man's loss of meaning and purpose sits within the larger societal matrix of apathy and cynicism that affects all people, not just men. The collective seems convinced of inevitable doom. This is a general sentiment of corruption prevailing and evil winning, which has instantiated a general feeling of hopelessness. Yet the dark truth is, if we truly commit to that perspective, we will fall. If we truly convince ourselves that nothing can get better, then it won't. This is affecting everyone, but with young men, it seems to be manifesting as a dejected sense of uselessness. They feel there is no purpose, no direction, and so they are opting out of institutions altogether. What's interesting about this dynamic is that historically men gleaned purpose in action, creating, moving tangibly towards a goal. This was their main sense of contribution, which also facilitated community. However, in our current times, it's not so simple. The culture is in conflict about the role of men, and young men are uncertain of their path, how they can contribute, if they are even needed. The hero archetype has become lost to the shadow. Archetypes are essentially psychological instincts which have formed across millennia through repetition across generations in service of survival. Every generation of men once had a task: to build the walls that kept the storm out, to lift the beams which made the roof, to risk themselves for something that would outlive them. That's the same instinct we now call the hero archetype, the drive to create, protect, and serve. The myth of the hero has given shape and direction to these instincts throughout history, turning them into the desire to serve something greater than oneself, transforming the struggle to survive into a calling. Like a craftsman who forged tools not for profit, but for the village to prosper. These instincts once built temples, bridges, and homes, each act a gesture of contributing to the community and creating order out of chaos, a way to weave the individual into the fabric of life itself. Through it, meaning was born. But what happens when that instinct is no longer honored? When the hero has no temple to build, no village to serve, and no vision to aim toward? When the craftsman is banished from the village, told his tools are no longer needed. Without initiation and guidance, the negative manifestations of these instincts emerge. The craftsman, confused and bitter, still feels the need to build but no longer knows what for. So he keeps working, but now his hammer strikes in anger. His tools of creation become weapons. The current cultural cynicism has deeply halted the hero myth, but not the instincts it symbolized. This means that the instincts persist, but without guidance towards a better nature. Without initiation and guidance, the negative manifestation of these instincts emerge. Men are left without knowing how to access this vision and steer these instincts towards a positive goal. Courageous action towards creation and protection of life becomes domination and nihilism. The sense of direction, agency, and contribution becomes stagnation, violence, and escapism. So what exactly are we supposed to do? Return to an outdated model to curtail the negative expression of men's instincts? Well, not quite. What we need to do is harness that instinct towards a positive goal. The masculine instincts need to find their home in the culture so they can be directed to a positive goal. Just because some of these instincts have been expressed destructively throughout history doesn't mean the instincts themselves were bad, only that they were misused. Whether we like it or not, the instincts aren't going anywhere soon. Therefore, we have to work with them instead of trying to sever and repress them. This will only lead to negative expressions. The answer isn't to destroy the craftsman, but to invite him to build once again. So, after all that, the hero just needs a little invitation. Leave him forgotten too long, and he'll start to answer darker calls. You've been watching Archetypal Wisdom. Remember to like and subscribe. Stay wise.